Hello again from your instructor here with Crowder College in Advanced English Composition. This is your week 2 video, and for this week we're going to discuss our very first essay, the essay proposal. There are actually 2 options. We're going to talk about that this week. So things to keep in mind for our week ahead for week 2, you need to read pages 211 to 229 in a sequence for academic writing. We also have, of course, the week 2 discussion board questions that I'd like you to respond to, and we have a second vocabulary quiz over session 20, which is found on page 200 to 205 in Word Power Made Easy. Finally, we also have our very first essay due, the final draft of essay 1, sorry about that, and you have 2 options, but it's due by September 7th, so not the end of this week but the end of next week. So we're going to talk about those, what they entail, and then next week we'll talk a little bit more detail in terms of the writing process. So there's 2 options for your first essay. You can either write a topic proposal, which is basically a cut and dry plan of action, if you will, for the final paper topic. So you're thinking about the questions: what is wrong in our current culture and what can you do to change it? So what you need to do is just think of something that you're passionate about, that you think about a lot, that you think that our world needs to change. Now, our current culture could be global, it could be something that happens worldwide, or it could be as simple as your community, your personal community that you live in. But what do you think needs to change? So in your proposal, you will explain the thing that is needed to be changed. You're going to say how you plan to implement that change, and then a plan of action concerning your research process. So that's more of a discussion of the actual essay plan. So I'm going to go to the Crowder Library. I'm going to find internet sources that are current. I'm also going to find journals that have information about my topic, so on and so forth. I might go do an interview. Whatever your research plan is, that's where you're going to outline that in your paper. So it's just a quick 1-page description of what you want to do for your final paper. Now, if some of you are a little more creative, that you like to write stories, well, then this second option might be for you. So the second option would be same kind of question: what is wrong in our current culture? But instead of outlining what you're going to do for the final paper, I'd like you to express that change through a creative fictional kind of lens. So what would it be like without electricity or gasoline? Or how would life change if your culture change came to fruition? What would life be like if what you think should change did happen? Or what if it doesn't happen ever, and what kind of spiral would we go into? So if you think of the creative route, then the change that you want to happen will need to be presented through a fictional lens. Creatively present how this change or lack of change would affect our world. So what would life be like is kind of the question, and to present that in a creative way, some sort of fictional account. So let's break it down with the 2 separate styles. So the very first option, which is that proposal. What do you need to do? What do you need to have in order to move forward with the proposal? First of all, you need to create a working thesis statement that could work for your final topic, for your final paper. So what is a thesis statement? Well, the thesis statement is a 1 to 2 sentence statement that clearly presents the topic that you plan to talk about, your point of view about the topic. So why do you want it to change? And then how do you plan on proving it? So if you want our world, our community, to create a community garden, so your topic would be community garden in your area, wherever you live. Your stance would be that in order to make your community better, it needs to have a community garden that everyone can participate in. And then how are you going to prove it? Well, you could prove it by showing how the community garden would be helpful to produce clean air for your community. It also will create a sense of togetherness where you work together for a common goal. And of course, it will provide food that the community would otherwise have to rely on someone else to provide for it. So you see, those are 3 elements on how I might prove that topic and stance about the community garden. But so what you need to do once you kind of figure out that topic stance of how, create 1 to 2 sentences that put it all together. Then once you have a thesis statement, then you need to put together a research plan. So what do you need to do in order to make that plan happen? So do some preliminary research and find some suitable websites or sources. Actually come up with specific things that you could put into your proposal that say, look, this source would work, this source would work. Or perhaps you might have a particular search engine that you want to utilize, like Google Scholar or the Crowder Library. And then, will you do any personal research? Will you interview anybody? Will you send any letters or emails, etc.? What do you plan to do? And I just want a paragraph that actually shares that research plan. And then finally, at the end of the proposal, pitch your idea with the intention of getting your audience to want to move forward with the idea. So you really want to persuade the audience to want to read your final paper. Like, this is what's really cool, this is what I'm going to do, and you should come along with me. So you want to, what change do you plan to make, how will that be accomplished, and what does the audience need to do to move forward? So you're just a quick, it's almost like a commercial, a 30-second commercial where you're trying to get somebody to buy your stuff. That's what this last paragraph of the proposal is going to do. It's pitching your idea. It's getting the reader to want to read that final paper, like a movie trailer. Remember, the format for both essays need to be 1 to 2 pages long. It needs to be typed and double spaced, so it's not as intimidating as you might have thought. It needs to have a title page and be an MLA format. I've posted 2 course documents in the announcements area what a title page would look like in MLA format. I also, in course documents, put the MLA formatted essay there for you to look at. So that's another way to find it, but it needs to be MLA format, double spaced, typed, obviously, otherwise you couldn't get it to me. It needs to be in Times New Roman font, 12 point, and the margin should be 1 inch on all sides of the paper. And of course, I've also posted a YouTube video on how to double space, so check that out as well. And you could submit this assignment through the Dropbox area in the Unit 3 area of the assignments and quizzes. Disregard this last part. It's actually due by September 7th. We don't have a first draft. It's a final draft by Sunday, September 7th. So this little part down here at the bottom is wrong. I apologize for that. So just a recap, remember, a thesis statement is the main idea of your entire paper. A working thesis means that it can be modified through the writing process. So by the time you get to your final essay at the end of the semester, it might not look the same as what the thesis statement you create for this particular paper. So it's working. A thesis statement not only shares the topic, but also presents your stance on the topic and how you plan to prove your stance. So here's my example. I have 2. As individuals in the United States, the issue of hunger stares us in the face through the piercing gazes of people living in our own communities, cities, and states. It may seem like a problem too large for any one person, but each of us can give, volunteer, and petition our governments to return those gazes with eyes of compassion. Or, here's another one, IBM, a once thriving technology company, must attempt to revive its image, increase profitability, and become a thriving competitor in the industry again. So both of these are thesis statements that present a topic. The first one's hunger. The second one is IBM. They both have a stance. So the first one is that we as individuals need to do something about hunger. The second one is that IBM, that particular community, needs to become a thriving technology company again. And then they both have ways to accomplish those goals. So the first one, volunteering, giving and petitioning the government, and the IBM needs to increase profitability and revive its image. So each of them have all 3 elements, they're just in different ways. In terms of the research plan, keep in mind that you should not be using Wikipedia. Watch out for blogs or emails or student documents, and please do not use any paper mill sites. We are not buying papers online. Determine what search engines might be used. So the Crowder Library is always a good place to start. And of course, Google Scholar is also available. Please don't spend money on those documents, though. If you find something that you think is interesting and it's asking you to pay money for it, copy the author, copy the title of the article, and then go in the Crowder Library and see if you could find it there. So just try to avoid spending extra money just to do research for our paper. And then present the information that you might need to find out during the research process. So perhaps you want to find statistics to back up your point of view, or a first-hand experience, like an interview that maybe you want to find that in your research. So you're actually going to explain this to the reader. Well, in the proposal, I want to find interviews. I want to find statistics that will back up my point of view. And then what do you not know about the topic that you might need to know? So I don't know what other communities are doing that are similar to my plan. How is it working? So on and so forth. One way to do that is to use a K&D chart. I have this up on the board, and of course you can access this through our course documents area. So if you wanted to use this chart on how to move forward, kind of a little pre-writing exercise, you can use this. And then finally, remember the last paragraph of your proposal should be the pitch. So this is where you are including your thesis statement, that you are trying to determine your audience, that you're trying to get your audience to agree with you, and then end with a challenge. So try to get the reader to do something about your particular topic. So I have an example here. Homelessness is a problem that permeates all segments of our society. It transcends climate, population, regions, and backgrounds. In fact, one source states among developed countries, the United States has the highest number of women and children experiencing homelessness. And then the citation: homelessness stares us in the face at exit ramps, at the doors of grocery stores, outside professional sporting events, and in our own consciences. The statistics show growing numbers of more dire situations. One advocacy group points out that more than 2 million nearly 1.4 million American children face the reality of homelessness. However, we can make a difference. Call your government representatives, volunteer at your local food bank or homeless shelter. Give what you can. Even the smallest gestures can make a difference. As well-known human advocate Martin Luther King Jr. said, everybody can be great because anyone can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. As individuals in the United States, the issue of homelessness stares us in the face through the piercing gazes of people living in our own communities, cities, and states. It may seem like a problem too large for any one person, but each of us can volunteer, and petition our governments to return those gazes with eyes of compassion. So here, this example is a paragraph that would be at the end of my topic proposal. It would be that pitch, trying to get the audience to do something about my topic. Now, the second option for this particular assignment would be to present the topic that you want to change in your community in a creative way. So you're presenting it like in a fictional frame of mind, making something up and presenting it in a fun way like that. So you're tasked with creatively presenting how this change or lack of change would affect our world. Creativity does not necessarily need to be fiction, even though that's kind of the lens that we're looking at our papers from. Writing creatively thinks about what could be, why things are the way they are, and how can things be presented in a new way. One quote said, creative writing is like jazz. It's a rich mix of flavors, ideas, and techniques. Or another quote, the word creative has been criticized in this context because some people have maintained that being creative means that you pretend or exaggerate or make up facts or embellish details. And this is completely incorrect. It is possible to be honest and straightforward and brilliant and creative at the same time. So creativity in writing does not necessarily have to be fiction. It's really about presenting your material in such a way that is interesting, engaging, and helps the reader experience what you are describing. And one way to do that is to use what's called the showing rather than telling method. So creativity can come in the shape of sensory writing. So that's when you use your 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. It's just like if you were looking at a photograph, the only sense that you are experiencing is sight. But we experience life with all 5 of our senses. So we can use our descriptive details in writing to help the reader experience all 5 senses. It's an amazing trick that our brains do. Reading is the only activity that can help us do that. We can't watch a movie and experience in all 5 senses, but we can read a book or read a story and get that sense of being there. So here are some examples. Telling would be to say it's a hot summer morning. Just letting us know it's hot, it's summer, and it's morning. Showing would be the summer heat rests in the morning air. Of course, we can't see heat resting generally, but the idea of it resting is kind of just where it is oppressive and sitting down and pouring over us. So it's a different type of description that gives us a sense of what it's like. Here's another telling. Writers are choosing the best words for the description. Okay, so that's letting us know that's what writers are doing. A showing would be writers are sorting through the leaves of our language. So you see a different point of view, a different way to look at things through the different descriptions using our 5 senses. Other ways you can be creative is to include dialogue. So dialogue is a presentation of actual conversations between characters or people. So this would be in real life or with the made-up characters that you've created for your paper. This would include quotation marks around the different voices as well as introductions of the speakers. Each new speaker needs to have a new paragraph started. So keep that in mind when you're creating dialogue. So here's an example. Still not making eye contact with anything but the horizon. I ask Rose, how did you pay for this? New speaker. I traded my wedding set. She shrugs her shoulders, regaining the seat she loved to inhabit and crossing her legs. The nice china set? I questioned, still not receiving full meaning to her words. No, hun. A pause drifts into Rose's confidence, separating her words like sand hill in our wheat fields. My engagement and wedding ring. So you can see that each paragraph starts a new speaker, and the speaker is introduced with interesting language. So don't forget to participate in the discussion board this week. Of course, we have a vocabulary quiz from Word Power Made Easy, and then we have our first essay that is due by the end of September 7th by 11:59 p.m. You could find the description in the assignments and quizzes area, and you can also find the Dropbox there as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we will see you in the discussion board. Have a great week.